Hello and welcome back to The Y Generation. As you know, this is a show where we discuss the topics relevant to our generation. Tonight we have a bunch of new topics which should spark some fierce debate between our panellists, and let me introduce you to them. Shane, our passionate lefty who likes to hike and do martial arts when he's not busy saving the world.
You flatter me, Jake.
Thank you. Jacqueline, our aspiring social worker who loves to dance.
Yes, Miley Cyrus, your twerker, but I'm a booty shaker and I don't think you're ready for this jelly.
Raina, our HR manager who drinks up to 10 cups of green tea a day.
I'm only 4 cups away from the Dalai Lama.
And Andrew, our Liberal representative on the panel, returns to debate another day.
I'm always up for the challenge. I just won't take the power from you, though.
Let's give them a warm welcome. And let's jump straight into our first item on the agenda, because Y said so. We're kicking things off today with an email from Tina. Dear Y-Gen, I was talking with my friends the other day and realised they don't know much about their local members of parliament. Are people really that politically ignorant? I'm worried because it seems we don't even care. Am I just freaking out, or is Australia, and the Y generation in particular, politically naive? Raina.
Oh, I am so ashamed to say this, being a business and law student, but I am not aware of who is in our local parliament, and neither do I really care.
OK, so the issues that, you know, they kind of promote, the policies that they in place for your community, you don't care about them?
It's not that I don't care about them, but the honest truth is I feel like I'm the little guy. I feel like no matter what I put out there, no matter what I do, no one's going to listen.
But as a law and business student, you could make, you know, it's possible that you could get into, you know, these kind of opportunities for government and things like that. So that still doesn't bother you that you don't know about it?
It does bother me. In fact, it actually bothers me, the fact that I do have an opinion, but I do not feel like I can express it.
Okay.
That's not being naive. That's not being naive. And I don't think Australians, especially our generation, is naive. I think they're very switched on. I think a lot of people I speak to now, old and young, know exactly what's going on, and that's a problem. Okay. And then apathy kicks in.
They're just disengaged.
I'd say
I think
it's
people
actually
are just
far more
disengaged.
apathy.
Okay.
It's not so much a matter of being switched on or ignorant, it's apathy. They couldn't care. They're more interested in what's going on in Hollywood or what's happening elsewhere than necessarily what's actually going on.
Sure,
and actually
okay.
what
But Generation Y are being introduced to voting, are being introduced to policies that are affecting them. Why aren't we finding these issues attractive
Because
when this could help us or, you know, hinder us in the future?
Because the problem is we're not naive, and that's what makes, because we know we're getting robbed. We know we're getting robbed of a responsible government. Ministers and representatives that don't represent us, all care about us, and a media that is completely impartial.
OK, that's a good point as well.
No,
I'm sorry to say, I feel like they more care about their egos than what the public really wants.
Okay,
it's more about, OK, yeah, no, I'm delivering promises. No, you're not. Sorry.
But then again, as you know yourself, when you have a budget, which is your income, you've only got a certain amount that you can spend in certain areas. Sometimes you have to restructure in order to go, well, this is the priority. This
Well,
needs
that's
to
a
be
different
sorted
topic
out
entirely.
first.
That's completely different to whether we're naive and switched on.
If you're talking about broken promises, that's where you're claiming it all would stem
But
from.
we're looking at discontent, like, you know, people aren't feeling heard, and that's why they feel that they are naive, because they're not going to be heard anyway.
I mean, honestly, I am 22 years old. Ever since I was 18, I've had to vote twice, and all I've ever done is donkey votes.
OK.
Look, I don't
is that naivety? Is that...
I don't think
No,
it's
that's
being,
apathy again. And it's because, like, we've got politicians that are never held accountable for what they do. And we just don't see the point in it. We want to trust them, but we can't.
What do you mean by
I
never
agree.
held accountable? They're held accountable every election cycle. 2015 is when you can turn around and complain about the state.
Yeah, but when you've got a Prime Minister who
but then you've got another 4 years of
Reading the
government
paper,
that,
have you been watching the news? Everyone's been complaining. No one's happy with this new budget, as far as I know from what I've been saying. No one's happy, but no one's doing anything about it. It's still going forward.
No one was happy with the levels of debt that we had going into the budgetary process either.
Well, that's debatable.
For the new budget
like,
was
when you've got people who are starting to get active, and you've got people now all of a sudden starting protests on scales we've never seen before in 2 decades. We've got 50,000 people showing up in Sydney and Melbourne to protest how much they give a shit. But the thing is, now we've got newspapers because of the great news producers like News Corp and Fairfax. No, it's not. They do care. And
get a job.
No, that's the thing, because all these people are now protesting, and you've got the media in your face now telling you that you're a bunch of grubs. Like, what else have you got to go? Because that media company is more interested in telling you what the Kardashians did as opposed to what human rights was broken that week.
Is that because, you know, we're not actually being introduced to these policies? They're not being kept.
Look, I do think it comes down to education as well. Like, I do think it comes down to, in all honesty, I don't see how it affects me. Being someone, I guess, who doesn't have a mortgage, who doesn't have to pay rent and whatnot, I don't really care for it because I'm like, okay, it doesn't affect me.
My
Who
mum
cares?
helps me vote, so we go to the booth and...
Okay, that's an interesting issue.
And how old are you? I'm not saying my age, but all I know is that my mum helps me vote. She says, she says to me, oh, I don't like the guy with the big ears, so don't vote for him. I'm like, okay.
Okay, let's leave that one there for now. I don't think we're going to agree on this one. Now, from political naivety to good leaders, and the question is from Indiana. Hi, YGen. I've been thinking about this lately and think that it would be a great group discussion. I'm really curious to find out what other people think makes a good leader. Is it the way they look, the promises they keep, or the things that they say? Recent leaders in Australia, from both sides of the political benches, have been heavily criticised, so maybe we can figure out what we actually want in a leader before the next election. Here's hoping. So, Andrew, how do you feel about this?
I feel that we shouldn't necessarily be looking to politicians as our leaders.
Okay,
because they have a very particular job that they need to be doing.
So maybe look at high-profile individuals in our community.
There are far more high-profile individuals that we should be looking at as leaders, because a leader needs to be someone that's prepared to make a risk, prepared to make the hard call, but also be able to get in the trenches with their staff, in the trenches with their employees.
Okay, sure. Shane, how do you feel about this?
Well, that's the thing. Like, are we talking about what makes a leader or what makes a good leader? Because they're two very different things.
It is, yeah.
Like, you look at a leader and they try to give you what you want. But a great leader and a good leader will give you what you need. And they can be very different things. It's only in retrospect that you really look at someone as being a great leader and judge them. They need to go through it all to be tested and tried to make mistakes, scandals, and piss people off before people look back on it in history and say, no, he was a great leader or she was a great leader for the things that they did, whether it was hard or whether it wasn't.
Sure, great, okay.
Well, I think the question should be not what makes a great leader, should be asking yourself, am I happy with what I've done in my life to others, to myself? Because you're never going to please anyone, so there's no...
How can you be a good leader yourself? That might be an issue as well. Yeah,
that's true.
Okay, so maybe we should look at some characteristics that we find in good leaders. That might be a good place to start.
Well, I think a good characteristic is someone who is goal-orientated,
okay.
Someone who actually has a lot of charisma, someone who actually knows what people want and actually deliver out their promises. But at the end of the day, as Andrew was saying, it comes down to what you personally perceive and what you are looking for and what you see as a good leader. I mean, I know some people who see Giselle Bündchen, who's that supermodel, as a great leader because she turned the modelling industry into a completely different thing, having a product, having a shoe range or whatnot. I love Richard Branson. I mean, I see that as a good leader. I care for him more than I do for our Prime Minister. So
a funny common characteristic that great leaders have, more than just leaders have, is that they're not perfect and they're often far from it. Like, you look at Martin Luther King and Winston Churchill, they were both alcoholics and they were profoundly arrogant.
Okay.
And then you look at JFK, like, he's having affairs left, right and centre.
It comes down to whether a leader or not, you're still a human being.
Yeah,
I mean, the other day,
that's a good thing.
In one of my classes, my teacher was telling us about how Steve Jobs, I mean, people worship him, that guy's a god, but people, a lot of the people that work for him...
envied and hated him for,
explained how he was so difficult to work with. He
Despite
was
the great things they do, the fact that they're not perfect
Yeah.
makes you believe that you can aspire to be that level. Because if they're not perfect and I'm not either, well, they did it, why can't I?
Well, is a good leader, you know, someone that does something for the greater good of the community, you know?
Someone, I do agree, who can inspire people, someone who can make people move. Motivate people.
But then again, you can also have a good leader that's not necessarily well known, that is actually quite humble and plays down what they do a lot more than they play it up.
Is that when we see, like what Shane's point, in retrospect, that's when we see that they were a good leader?
You don't see it when it happens, it's all the effects come afterwards. Because great leaders don't inspire action. Great leaders inspire belief. Like, at times in history where you would really not believe you could do something, the greatest leaders have come out and made people believe that they could do it. Not that they could do it, they deserved it. Like Winston Churchill, going back to him. World War II, Germans knocking on the door, didn't have a prayer. What does he do? Gets on the radio every single night and says, we can do it, we've got this, we're going to beat the Jerrys. Why? Because we're British, goddammit. And they won. Because he made them believe it.
Some inspirational points raised there, guys. We will have to take it to a break now, but please continue watching The Y Generation, where we will be discussing a welfare state culture. Have your say on social media, and don't forget to use the hashtag YGenTV. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Y Generation. In this next segment, we send our team down to the busy streets of Sydney to find out what our viewers think of a welfare state culture.
Half my friends, 50% of my friends are on Centrelink, and half of them, 3/4 of them work on the side anyway.
Yes.
It's contributing to a lot of slackers, that's for sure.
There are people who personally don't need it but make excuses for it. So I think the government should be a bit careful with who he's giving money to, I guess.
I hate Centrelink, all right? They make you run around for $200 a fortnight, okay? It's stupid. I hate it.
They're sort of giving a lot of people a free ride.
Yeah, I would say so.
I believe so, yes.
I think there needs to be more programs to sort of get people active in the workforce and just give them a good push along.
I think it is, to some extent.
Some other people that actually need it, broken legs, everything like that, actually deserve it.
I think there's a definite need for Centrelink, and I think Australia is much better off for having a welfare system.
It's too easy to get handouts these days, and they're definitely not doing the job of looking at who actually needs the money.
So I think it's a good opportunity for people who need to get on the New Start program and things like that to get them to the next step of their employment. But there are obviously people who do take advantage of it, and yes, it may lead to a welfare state of culture.
Are we contributing to a welfare state culture through our use of social programs and Centrelink? Is this because we are just too lazy or we are unable to find employment? Lots of directions this conversation could take. Shane, take us through your ideas.
Well, when people established welfare and came up with the idea of it, of course they knew people were going to take the piss out of it, but that didn't stop them. They still went ahead with it because of the main objectives of it. It is set in place to help people who are at a disadvantage, either situationally or over the long term, to be able to take part in society.
Okay,
and I'm proud that we have it.
We are seeing 243,000 people being introduced to social welfare every year. Should there be some kind of regulation to ensure that,
I definitely think it needs to be tightened.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people out there who are on Centrelink that definitely do not need to be on it. Like, I study full time and I also work up to 30 hours a week. If I can do it, I have 2 hands, two feet, eyes, legs, everything. So does everyone else. Why can't they do it? I get frustrated.
The reason why they're on Centrelink is because they can't find employment. Lazy. No, because they can't find employment.
We live in Australia, for God's sakes. There's employment everywhere. There's opportunities everywhere. We're not living in some place.
Okay, so instead of just providing social welfare, should we be looking at social programs to ensure that people can actually be provided with employment?
Get them, your job seeker provider is like 29 and you're 20. How humiliating is that? So you might as well create new jobs for people to work.
Part of the equation is people actually wanting to get a job. There are a lot of people which are generational on Centrelink whose parents have been on there and their grandparents have been on there and never gotten off. Once you're actually in that trap of entitled to welfare, that you have a right to welfare,
like even when
which
we
is
were just
other
watching
people's money to start with, because it all comes out of our taxes. You have to be prepared to
the money's I don't agree with people leeching off welfare, but the money doesn't disappear. It does get spent. Like, pensioners don't just hoard money and then put it in their bathtub.
Look, I work right next door to a housing commission. And the amount of people that I see that are coming, that are high, that are probably even drunk as well.
It's true.
That's, that
and I don't agree with that. I don't advocate that either.
Some conflicting beliefs there, but let's wrap that one up. Even though I was enjoying all the tension, we'll be back right after this ad break. Stay tuned for more of The Y Generation. Welcome back. In this next segment, we unravel some hard-hitting social topics and see what the Y Generation has to say about them. Possession of cannabis has been legal since the late 1930s. Recently, some countries have legalised possession of small quantities of it. What would be the effect if people could buy cannabis from their local store or petrol station? And is Australia too strict? Shane, how do you feel?
Well, this is an easy one to talk about. Not because the topic itself is easy, but there's already examples of where it's happened. So let's look at Venezuela for a second. Venezuela, a couple of years ago, legalised all drugs, you name it, for personal use only. So cocaine, heroin, marijuana, it doesn't matter what it is. So what they've noticed in the past couple of years is that murder, crime, and people getting put in prison have plummeted while they're starting to make money off taxing drugs as well. If you get caught in Venezuela with drugs, they give you a pamphlet and they'll ask you to go to rehab, and they'll generally look into getting you better as opposed to punishing you and putting you in prison.
Okay, so THC is actually...
and acceptance is the right way to deal with this. You're talking about people that, by your own admission, are murderers and hardcore criminals. Giving them a pamphlet's really going to solve the problem?
I'm not saying drug users are the ones that are causing the crime. It's the people that are involved with the drugs trade that are involved with crime.
What makes you say that really the decrease in crime rate is through drug selling? There may have been other things. There may have been changes in policies. There may have been change, God knows
causation
what.
doesn't always refer to correlation, and I understand that. But when these statistics, and in Colorado as well, are so whopping, you can't disregard it. In Colorado, murder rates in 2013, 1 year after they legalized personal use of cannabis, dropped 66%. And now there's other things as well to consider. There's the economic gain of being able to legalise it and put a tax on it, because you can. They put tax on other bad stuff, alcohol and cigarettes.
Okay, so the Colorado method, how would you look at bringing that, for example, into Australia, which has got a 3-tier level of government?
But the fact is that THC is a leading compound in marijuana, in cannabis, okay? So it can also be highly addictive, which can actually increase or actually decrease someone's, ideology.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. But you know what? The British... Sorry, go on.
No, I said it's definitely psychologically addictive,
Yeah, it is.
Look, I think there's a short-term... there may have been that short-term effect of, OK, it decreases crime, it does this and that, or whatnot, but I think long-term, you'll actually end up with more problems. Your kids, from that drug that's in it, genetically-wise, your kids are going to have lots of problems. And you said economic benefits. That's just dirty money, man.
Yeah, but then we're OK with making tax off cigarettes and alcohol, and cigarettes and alcohol just kill people.
Look, cigarettes do kill people. Why? Because it is legal. And if you make drugs legal...
I don't think we're going to agree on that one. Let's leave that there. Now, this topic should interest all of our students on the panel. Should tertiary education institutions be charging higher education fees, or should it be free altogether? Jacqueline, how do you feel about this?
I definitely think that it should be free. Already you're paying HECS. And now if you put more interest on this payment, how are you supposed to pay it? So it should just be for free altogether.
Well, HECS is actually something that gets repaid out of your earnings post-uni.
Yeah, it's a small
amount.
amount.
As soon as you hit 50 grand a year, you'll be repaying it, start repaying your HECS debt.
But the whole point for this education afterwards is to get a job. But you can't find it even after you've had your education.
We do have an economic responsibility as well. Like, is this feasible for our community? Is it feasible for Australia as a whole?
Well, it's been feasible for other countries. Like, you look in a lot of European countries where they're finding out that for every dollar the government invests in tertiary education, they get $3 back. I'm sure it works a lot better there. The culture there is definitely better.
But then again, like, if you're talking about European countries, for example, Austria, they actually have these implemented over a range of kind of systems, health, education, housing. You know, you don't actually own your house there as well, so that's a bit of an issue as well.
So there are trade-offs, but there is you can definitely see where the turnaround is by investing money in education, whether the students themselves or the government's paying for it.
Well, the reality is the government paying for it is people's taxes. It's how much of other people's money do you want?
Well, I'd rather
how
go
much
into
of other
that than
people's money you want
jets,
access to.
that's for sure.
So you'd quite happily spend someone else's cash.
Well, something that we need to remember as well is the actual prices of each, unit, each fee that is added on. Are they kind of,
Look, personally,
are they responsible?
I think if you're going to uni, it's only fair that you are paying for it yourself. I mean, you were saying, how is it right that we have to pay for it even though we're not guaranteed jobs? But in case you're not aware, you only pay your HECS when your salary goes above a certain amount. In that sense, you were safe. It's not like,
I'm aware of that.
Not like, yeah, but the thing is, it's not like as if you're just forced to get out of uni and pay for your HECS. I think our system here in Australia is very fair. And no, I don't think it should be free, because who's going to pay for it?
I don't disagree with that. I know it's very expensive to run these institutions. They're huge and they employ thousands of people and they take in thousands of students, if not millions. But the worry is when profit starts to come into it. And there's no denying, of course, there's going to be universities. In America, that's their game. That's what they do it for. So when profit comes into it, I find profit in the pursuit of knowledge to be offensive to the whole concept.
That's a good point,
How is profit offensive? I mean, you make profit off what you know all the time. It's what business is about. It's what educational institutions can achieve.
It's the debate whether is a university a business or is it an institute of learning.
It's definitely.
And they're different things. The objectives are different.
Is this going to provide
I think
opportunity?
it's hard to find a balancing between the two. Like,
it definitely is.
But what we need to remember is this going to actually provide opportunities for people that would not be able to afford this any other way? Is it going to, you know, implement change in our society
It's
to
going to
become
create
higher
a class
educated?
exclusive system where only the most affluent are able to get good educations and go study medicine and things like that. When someone who comes from a lower
suggesting class exclusivity.
I mean, we're all from UWS. A lot of us from UWS are the first.
What does that matter, though?
OK, guys, I don't think we'll agree on that one. Can you please help me thank our awesome panel today, guys? And it's goodbye for now, but the good news is that we'll be back for another episode of fun-filled debate next week. For now, though, we part with one final gift from all of us at the Y Generation to you. Good night.
So, hi, did you do it?
Hey guys, I brought eggs.
Eggs?
Yeah.
Why?
Eggs. I think they're cool.
Huh?
Hey.
Oh.